Hello all and welcome to this week's series of realism tips. This week we're going to be focusing on different hunting tactics and tips. So here I'm going to be implementing a few different types of clips. Some of them are real and from various eras on a Walking with Dinosaurs server. Others of them are staged, so we'll try and hit on a few different matters within these clips themselves. My first tip for you all is going to be to try and ensure that you're being aware of your surroundings. Sniff always to ensure that you are not hunting with a gore or that you're not breaking any rules. It is entirely up to the hunter to ensure that all hunts that they do are legal, so it's always good to be mindful of your surroundings. This also has the added benefit of ensuring that nobody's trying to sneak up on you to hunt you, and trying to give you as much success as you can in order to actually catch your prey. So always be mindful of your surroundings and what's going on around you. This week is also going to be a little bit different because a lot of these clips are going to be a bit longer, so there's going to be some downtime while I just let the clips play. So please also just be mindful of that. Some of these clips are also going to be a little bit louder because, again, they are just kind of mishmash across different eras of the server at different play sessions. So some may just be a little bit louder, and I apologize. My next tip for y'all is also to just try and be mindful of how you are being perceived as a hunter and how you yourself are or are not being noticed. So, even if you're not an ambush hunter, trying to get as close to your prey without being noticed as possible is always going to be beneficial in leading to the success of your hunt. And it's always more realistic to come at a prey item with a threatening mannerism than if you were to just casually walk up and start fighting them, as opposed to crouching or sneaking up on them. Similarly to that, patience in hunting is always going to be a virtue. So the right moment to actually strike can take a little while, but ultimately that's what ensures that you have a successful hunt at the end of the day. That's going to be the best route to go. So ensuring that you're leaving yourself open to those opportunities and allowing those opportunities to naturally arise is always going to be your best bet. Sometimes those opportunities won't actually come along even if they look very promising, and that's entirely okay. It's just how hunting as a whole will go. A lot of hunts in real life are not successful, so it's perfectly realistic to spend a bit more resources on a hunt that never actually happens. Those opportunities will still come along, though. My next tip for you all is also to just pick a hunting strategy that is based entirely on the risk apparent to you and what would actually end up being the least risky. So for Mosa, it's actually very effective to just drown your prey. You have less chance of getting hurt, and the prey will ultimately still meet the same fate. It's not as flashy as if you thrash them, but ultimately the goal here is just to get a meal, and however I can do that is entirely okay with me. Additionally, investment in a hunt is also just always conditional, so a hunter is engaging in a dangerous activity just to secure a meal, while the hunted are there at the potential cost of their life. It's always better to assess if the risk is worth the reward, and understanding when to back down. There's pretty much always going to be another meal coming, but when the alternative is injury and ultimately death, then sometimes going a little bit hungry is better. So this is the first of the clips that was filmed on the other server just to help try and stage these in a way that we could realistically do in a short period of time without straight up breaking a lot of rules on walking with. So here I'm just demonstrating that sometimes waiting for that opportunity is going to come in the form of stalking. Sometimes you'll be stalking your prey for a very long period of time, waiting for that just one opportunity to come. Sometimes it never will and you'll have to make the most of it or let it go altogether. But ultimately, stalking is going to be one of your better ways in order to actually get close to your prey and to get off some of those first few hits at least risk of injury to yourself. In this clip, posted was the Apato, and posted stated that he actually could not see me at all during this entire sequence here. Even if you don't feel like you're being sneaky, sometimes you actually just genuinely cannot be seen. Here I actually would have waited too long for my ambush, as the Apato is too far away now from coverage for me to successfully approach, but we'll still try it anyway. Of course, the Apato sees me and can now react appropriately. An offensive ability such as Z-calling is going to start off the hunt. And we're going to start looking for an opportunity to attack them. This Apato is an adult and it's pretty intimidating. It's calling, it's whipping, it's stomping, it's holding its head up high, trying to approach. I just kind of get charged at here. So trying to find that opportunity, it's just not really presenting itself. It's just very well defending itself. So this would be a good case of a very healthy individual being your target. And in situations like this, it's entirely okay to be intimidated. In those circumstances, if you're just not finding that there's a good opening that you can get into without hurting yourself, if the prey is just too strong, it's okay to give up. Never be afraid to back off as a hunter. Most hunts will not succeed. So we're going to go into the second clip, which is also a case of what not to do, which is just run and attack. assess the risk to yourself and to others. So you're going to be at increased risk of just straight up dying if you just run into attack recklessly. Which leads into the second point, which is always knowing when to give up if you are getting too hurt. Never wait until the last possible moment. It's better to try and back away if you can, and then forfeit the hunt. I recommend going no lower than really 40% before you 4 or 5 or 2 call, but sometimes that isn't always what will realistically happen if there are multiple members in a hunt, if you're just getting caught up tail whipping or whatever the case may be. In this final clip here, we're just going to be approaching this a bit more realistically, as if we were actually being hunter and hunted. So here I'm approaching it a lot more carefully. I'm looking for my opportunity. I feel that the Zapato is weak enough that I can still hunt it and have a chance to do so. So I'm waiting for my openings, and I'm taking them appropriately. Always bear in mind that whenever you're engaging in any kind of hunting behavior, ultimately it is just a meal for the hunter, and for the hunted it is their life that is up for the skin. So taking that time to really assess the checks and balances of what a meal is versus what your life is always very important. These kinds of tactics wouldn't really work for ambush hunters like Rex, which focus on getting in and killing as quickly as they can because of their extreme damage output and lack of healing stance. But for pretty much all other hunters, besides maybe Chrono, these are more realistic hunting strategies while you're testing each other to see who is going to ultimately win the fight. And while you're ultimately just seeing if the hunt is even worth it. So here I'm just trying to keep the pressure on the Apatosaurus, but you can see I'm also getting a little bit weak. So I'm trying to take myself some space to get a little bit of a timeout, but still trying to maintain that pressure. And here's one of my first mistakes, which is not accounting for the terrain here. I actually took more damage from that fall than from the Apato, and broke my ankles pretty badly. Normally in a hunt here, I would actually back off right then and there at 4 or 5 call. However, say this was a circumstance where we're just really desperate for food. If we don't get this meal, this is our last chance. Regardless of if the Apato kills us, it'll be hunger or something else. And sometimes we just have to continue to take that risk. But it also just goes to show how one mistake can drastically affect the outcome of a hunt or how it progresses. So here I'm approaching it a lot more cautiously, whereas Posted is using the terrain to his advantage. And is using the terrain very effectively. So now I pretty much have to take a little bit of a breather. If I don't, then I'm at extreme risk of dying, and while this is a video game and we can come back, that's still not the ultimate goal. An animal wouldn't approach it like, oh well, I could die and be brought back. I will just go ahead and try that out. A real animal will be like, ow, that really hurt. Is this worth it to continue? So I'm trying to heal where I can and keep up that pressure without losing sight. Should the prey escape out of render distance, the hunt would naturally stop anyway. So it is better for me to try and maintain that pressure and maintain that stress. At this time, Posted Zapato was getting pretty thirsty, so they were having to try and move away anyway. If they didn't, they would have been at risk of dehydrating. And this is a factor that as an endurance hunter you can take into account, and you can try and spend and use to your advantage. After all, again, it's not really about how clean or how pretty or how skilled of a hunt it is. At the end of the day, it's about trying to secure a meal. And for the hunter, it's about trying to escape with their life. So there I found a bit of an opportunity. My broken status led me to being even more broken. But now, while they're stuck on that cliff, dehydrating, I get an opportunity to take a bit of a step back, continue to put that pressure on them, and rest a little bit. You can see there I am very hurt. Again, in normal circumstances, I would have immediately backed off here, but say we're just too desperate to do so. We just cannot afford to. And by now we have more extended stress with each other, so that's also going to be aiding me since I'm not feeling that intimidation. Here they're feeling that they have to move, they're dehydrating, they're being intimidated, so they're trying to pressure me off. Which is always something you, as a prey item, can really do. If you see your predator sitting there healing, you don't have to just let them do that. If they're attacking you actively, then you're well within your rights to try and be a bit more aggressive in those circumstances. Some animals will always prioritize fleeing if they can, but you don't always have to play nice and just let them sit there and heal. If they are that hurt, there's a very real chance that you can hurt them enough to make them reconsider. And there I definitely would have called it off had Posted not fallen. Well, thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something. You might be investigating this a bit more in Path of Titans as well. It's going to be a very interesting time trying to incorporate hunting tips, just because it's more about how to realistically hunt than hunting tactics and what you can do to be a better hunter for this.